Hi guys, welcome back to Straight Outta Colney here on AFTV. We have another press conference to look at. Mikel Arteta's been speaking ahead of the Burnley game. He's been talking about Leno, Ramsdale, he's been talking about team news, he's been talking about Partey's fitness, he's been talking about Norwich and the reaction since then. Quite a few things to go through. Sorry, that was just me. I had something in my eye. That's not me getting teary because we actually won a game of football. We're going to look at it all. But yeah, first thing to say is that obviously we don't have European football, so sometimes this week can feel a bit bare, but I mean, it's giving Arteta and the team a chance to have more time on the training field ahead of these matches, more time one-on-one with the coaching. And listen, I miss European football. A team of Arsenal side should be not only in European football but in the Champions League. We don't have that at the moment, but you know what? Every cloud, I suppose. You can try and look at the positives, and I think this week it's going to be interesting to see how we react to other clubs, supposedly our rivals, the people we want to be chasing down, the teams we want to be competing with, playing in Europe, see how they do on the week on the back of that, and see how we compare, really. I mean, look, we've got Burnley coming up, with or without Europe. It's a tough game, it's a winnable game, it's a game I expect Arsenal to win, but it's also not a game I expect us to sail through by any means. This could be a tricky test, and he was obviously asked about that, Arteta. But before we look ahead to all that, let's go back. Norwich, 1-0 win. The fans were fantastic. Aubameyang with a little bit of a lucky goal, but in fairness, the win wasn't lucky. We found a way to get over the line, and the first thing he was asked was, how he's felt since the Norwich game, and we're just going to highlight some of the things he said. We won't read out the full quote here, but he said that it was good for the players to experience the reaction of the fans towards the team on the day, and to be, winning the first match and getting out the blocks in the Premier League. He said that was a big moment for them, and so he's very, very happy. And I think when he says about experiencing the reaction of the fans towards the team, I know exactly what he means. I understand, we've had the last year and even the back end of the season before playing without fans in the stadium, scoring goals, and it's kind of celebrating amongst yourselves. It felt hollow, it felt empty, it wasn't the same. And maybe not just winning, but winning in front of your fans and getting that goal, maybe we'll add a little something to the team, hopefully going into the Burnley game. And I don't just mean confidence in what they do on the pitch. I'm talking about maybe not motivation is not the word, but just drive, just sort of, just a little bit of a reminder of what it means to not just the players on the pitch, but us fans around. And I know a lot of the players get that, but, I do think getting that win in front of the fans would definitely have made a big difference. Let's go into a little bit of early team news. We're going to chat about that mainly at the end, but just a little bit of early team news. He was asked about Thomas Partey at the beginning of this press conference, and whether he's fit to start against Burnley, because obviously Maitland-Niles started in midfield. And I thought what was interesting about that was, listen, El Neni was injured, and Granit Xhaka is suspended, but I thought what was interesting was that he didn't rush Partey back, as we have seen in the past. He decided to manage his fitness a bit better and get Maitland-Niles into midfield, and this is on the back of him almost leaving on deadline day. Decided to keep him, and apparently they cleared the air talks, and here's Maitland-Niles starting in midfield for Arsenal against Norwich. Whether Partey's fit to start against Burnley, he said he is there. He has been training in and out this week. His load has to be managed because it was the early stages of the injury, what he had, but he is pushing everyone like he always does, and he wants to be involved. We will make the decision at the end of the weekend. So we will make the decision at the weekend to see what's best for him. So it sounds like he's not going to rush Partey back. We saw that with the selection of Maitland-Niles in midfield against Norwich. But I think Partey will start this game. I think Burnley are the kind of team you want a presence and experience and composure of a player like Thomas Partey. Partey's been there and done that. Now, I know he's not won the Champions League and stuff, but he's played in very, very good Atletico Madrid side. He's played against some of the best teams and players in the world, and in some of the best competitions. He won't be fearing Burnley, and I think Burnley are a good side, but he won't be fearing them, and I think we've got to get him into the team. I think he's got to start, I think, alongside Lokonga. But go check out the warm-up, which is coming out tomorrow, where we'll obviously be picking our 11s, and I'm sure we'll be debating me, Turkish and Cecil, who we'd have in the 11s. But Partey for me has got to play. And speaking of team selection, there was a lot being asked in the press conference about this, and rightly so, because especially with the reports coming out, we touched on News Daily, me and Chris Hudson, what's this rumour that Leno is supposedly being promised his place back against Spurs, which is the North London derby, which is next weekend. There's still 2 games of football to play in between now and then. So for a goalkeeper to know he's being selected for a game ahead of time, that would be very strange. And obviously he was asked about Ramsdale coming in for the Norwich game ahead of Leno. Here's what he was asked. He was asked about the reasons why he picked Ramsdale. This is what he said. He said, we had to change something, and Aaron has come in here to try and make us better. We needed a result on the day, and I decided to play him. That's all. Now, I think that's really interesting, because he says, we had to change something. Yes, but a team's cohesion isn't necessarily down to what the goalkeeper does, although I do completely appreciate that Ramsdale's distribution is a big part of it. But then he was asked about starting Ramsdale and how Leno's reaction was to that. He then said, it's the same in every position. We want them to make each other better. We're competing against opponents. We are not competing against each other here. We are just trying to bring in players that raise the level of the players who are playing in that position, the level of the team, the level of the club, and this is the only reason. Obviously for Byrne, it wasn't a pleasing communication to tell him he wasn't playing, but he is a top professional and a top person, so he should be disappointed, but he should support his teammates like they all do with him every time he has played, and that's exactly what he has done. I was getting a little bit worried about that quote until the end, where he said, and that's exactly what he has done, because he's saying things about, it wasn't nice to tell him that he wasn't going to be playing. He should be, and this is the word he said, he's a top professional and he should be disappointed, but he should support his teammates. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, where are you going with this? Are you hinting that he's not doing it, or that that's what you expect and that's not quite what you've got from him? But then he ends with, and that's exactly what he has done. So I'm glad to hear that. Listen, I've said this on News Daily. I think Byrne Leno has suffered from Emi Martinez coming in doing a really good job. And in reality, Leno's not playing much better or worse than he did before his injury. We knew he always had a slight mistake in him, but he was a fantastic shot stopper who ultimately kept us in more games than he cost us. Since the Martinez stuff, the goalkeeper situation has been really kind of at the front of people's minds with Arsenal. And it's been difficult, especially with Ramsdale coming in for the money that we spend. So I can't imagine it's been easy for Leno. Now, I don't think he's put in performances that suggest that he's undroppable either. So yeah, I can imagine he's disappointed. But amongst all that I've just said, there's nothing that suggests to me that he wasn't a professional who had a good attitude and did what was right for the team. I've always felt that was the case with Leno, so I'm glad I'm glad Arteta said what he said, and that ultimately he's taken it well. But he'll be disappointed and he'll be fighting for that place back, and I've got no doubt that we probably will see Leno starting some Premier League games this season, because he is still a good goalkeeper, and on these days a terrific goalkeeper. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. There were reports, though, and we touched on this in News Daily, that Leno could be back from the North London derby. Arteta rubbished that immediately. Here's what he said. I don't know where they are coming from, but they are ahead of me. I think I'm the one who picks the team at the weekend, and sometimes I read things that I haven't decided yet. So they give me ideas at most, but nothing else, because I haven't made a decision for Saturday. So you can imagine the North London derby. Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I got to say, that felt a really weird story to me. Why would you tell someone you're not playing, but you're going to play in our biggest game of the season so far when it comes around, the North London derby? 2 weeks at a time, a week and a half? There's 2 games. There's still Burnley, and then there's still AFC Wimbledon. Ramsdale, and I really hope he doesn't, and I've got all the faith in Ramsdale, but he might really struggle against Burnley. He might then be given the minutes against Wimbledon, or Leno might be given the minutes against Wimbledon, doing really, really well. And Arteta might think, what, look, in training too, we're going to chuck you in for Spurs. So it felt a weird story. I'm glad he's kind of rubbished that, because it did feel... Listen, he could... I don't want to use the word lying, but he could be just denying that to us, because he doesn't want that kind of thing out there in the public domain, but it just doesn't sound like something anyone would really do. So yeah, I'm glad he's addressed that, and I'm glad the journalist actually asked him about it as well. He was asked if he's been worried by Leno's response to playing against Norwich, and he said no, that basically he's been great with his teammates, which is fantastic. And I think that pretty much closes the kind of Leno Ramsdale section of the press conference. I mean, what's there to say? Look, Leno's not been faultless. Ramsdale has, but I mean, we're talking a very small, pool of games to choose from, and 2 games where he's really had nothing to do. So you play Leno. Sorry, you play Ramsdale. You play Ramsdale because you spend money on him, and you clearly think there's a future for him at the club. with Leno, you let them fight it out, see who's doing well in training, see how they're performing in their matches, and you kind of go from there. So I think we can leave the Leno Ramsdale thing. I think Ramsdale's going to start against Burnley, if I'm honest, and yeah, we'll see how he does. Anyway, I just mentioned Burnley. Let's talk about them and what Arteta's been saying about Burnley and Dyche. Now, just some brief thoughts as we go into this game. Burnley are having a poor season. 4 games in, we're having a poor season. But Burnley are having a poor season. 4 games in, they haven't won a game yet. But I kind of feel that never really matters with Burnley. I feel like they've had these spells where you think, oh, is this the year Burnley could go down? But Sean Dyche is not my cup of tea in terms of managerial style, but in terms of yielding results from the resources he's got, you'd struggle to find many managers that get more out of what they've got than Sean Dyche. And listen, Burnley have some good players, some players I like Dwight McNeil. I think Chris Wood's a real handful. I like their centre-backs, Tarkowski and me. But ultimately, for the resources he's had in terms of money to spend, he's doing a fantastic job. This is what he had to say about Sean Dyche. He's just been given a new contract. He says, I think he deserves huge credit with the resources he has, the way he has established the club in the Premier League and how he has done it over the years, and he has stuck to his beliefs and done it his own way and created a unique identity on the club, which is something that is very difficult to do in this league. So credit to him and congratulations. Yeah, I kind of echo what he said about Sean Dyche, and I've said my piece on him. I think he's doing a fantastic job at Burnley, even though there's been a poor start to the season. I imagine Burnley fans are all team Dyche and will kind of not really be worried. So I'm not going into this game looking at Burnley's position and thinking, oh, we're catching Burnley on a good day necessarily. Yes, they might not have all the confidence from the start to the season they've had, but it's Burnley and it's Turf Moor, and even when we've won there, it's never ever been easy. I can't think of a comfortable performance we've had at Turf Moor. He was asked about Burnley chasing their first win of the season. I've just said they've not had one yet, and he said that they have been finding it difficult to get results, but that they've been unlucky. He says he's been watching Burnley. He does feel a little bit sorry for them, in terms of the results they've been getting for the performances they've been putting in. But he was also asked about Burnley looking to make it uncomfortable for us, and obviously the referee's role in all this. Now, this is quite is it unique? It's a unique situation in that we've had a lot of pundits say how great the game's been with referees this year, making it how do I put it? They've just been making it a thing that this year they're not going to be so soft on tackles. They're going to allow the physicality to come back into the game, that they're not going to blow every time you go down. There's going to be a degree of leniency towards the players making the tackle and allowing for that physicality to come back into the game a little bit. And a lot of people have enjoyed that. But Jurgen Klopp, for example, has been a manager who's been very critical, saying, listen, the game shouldn't be like it was in the 80s because life isn't like it was in the 80s. Things have changed and adapted, and the game needs to adapt with it. We've seen some tackles. We know the Tarkowski tackle on Richarlison. For me, I think it's a yellow because I get he got the ball. Listen, if an orange card or whatever exists, that's probably what it was. I'm in that camp of, if it's given a yellow or if it's given a red, I kind of understand either way. Some people are saying that the game's gone soft and that shouldn't be. I just think, I know he's got the ball, but he's really kind of come through him, and I do think there's a degree of intent to really leave one on. Personally, that's how it looked to me. It might have just been a bit unfortunate with where he ended up. I don't know, but it's interesting that he was asked about that, and when asked about the referee's role and whether Burnley will make it uncomfortable, he said, I don't know. We know the rules and we respect the rules, and there is an official who has to say what is right and what is wrong. And then asked whether some of the tackling has been over the top this season, he said, well, they explain the rules. We can agree or disagree, but we don't have a say. I wouldn't waste any energy on that. I know a lot of managers have spoken out, okay, not a lot, some. Jurgen Klopp. But Jurgen Klopp's a genius of the game, and he's a visionary. His gegenpress was a new thing in football, or at least a development of something maybe we'd seen before, and he brought it to the Premier League, into European football, has got to 2 Champions League finals, won the Champions League final. So when Jurgen Klopp speaks, I listen to him, and if he's feeling that the players need to be protected, And from what I'm seeing, I sometimes get a feeling of that too. But I think Burnley will come and they will make it difficult for us. And I'm sure they'll try and play within the laws of the game. But it's about the referee to kind of implement that. And Arsenal need to not worry about that. Now, this is where I really like Arteta's response. He said, I wouldn't waste any energy of that. We can agree or disagree, but I wouldn't waste any energy of that. And he's right. Arsenal need to go, be robust themselves, be physical, make it difficult for Burnley. We talk about Burnley making it awkward for us. Make it difficult for them. Don't let them have the ball. Make them run round, tire them out, and then you know what? When it gets a bit physical, match them. And that's why I want to see the likes of Gabriel and Tomiyasu in the team. We know Tierney doesn't really shy away from a fight, and I would think that Ben White, after what happened at Brentford, will have a point to prove. So I'd hope he'd be up for it too. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is managed throughout the game by the referees, but mainly how Arsenal. But listen, the referees is a subplot. It's mainly about how Arsenal deal with it, how Arteta gets his team to. Arteta wasn't, he was a pretty lightweight player in terms of his style and his ability, but he got stuck in, he wasn't afraid of a bit of confrontation. So, I don't know, I'd hope the Arsenal players would show something similar. And listen, our last 2 trips to Turf Moor, we haven't won, but we haven't lost, and I think that the third time before those previous 2 times was a 3-1 win. So, listen, come on, we can go get something there. We want to win, and we're good enough to do it. Now, let's move towards the kind of end of this press conference. Few other things, but he was asked about Jack Wilshere and whether Wilshere's been in touch about training. We talked about this on News Daily. Jack Wilshere's been saying that, he heard what Arteta said in the press conference and he'll speak to someone at the club. So here's what he said. He said, we're in conversations with Jack to understand what he needs, what he's looking for. He's a person and player who has a huge admiration around everybody, not just the players or fans, but all the staff around here. We are willing to help him as much as we possibly can. He knows that, and this is the situation. He's then asked if Wilshere could play for Arsenal again. He said, I wouldn't take it that far. What I'm saying is that we're in conversations with him to understand what he needs, how we can help him, and that's it. Now, we've all seen Ronaldo, get the ball, put it in the back of the net. Old Trafford erupts. Everyone loves the moment because it's nostalgic, but also it's a real moment of history. I don't want Man United to do well. But even I watched that moment and thought, that's pretty special. And I think you're not a football fan if you can't admit that, if I'm honest. Or at least you're far too in your feels when it comes to Arsenal and all that. You've got to you look at those moments and it's special. And maybe there's a little part of us that wants that for Jack Wilshere. Jack Wilshere wasn't as good for us as Cristiano, but obviously, but we all love Jack Wilshere, and he came through Hairland and what he did for the club, and the chanting towards the Spurs fans. We all love that. But injuries has left him in a very sad situation. I feel for him. We want him to come back and train and prove himself, and ultimately be given a squad number and get some Premier League minutes. But the chances are that's just not going to happen, and it's a real shame. And Arteta's saying that I wouldn't take it that far with Jack. We're going to offer him what we can from a training perspective. So never say never. A lot of players who are written off, who thought they'd never play again, Santi Cazorla for example, have made comebacks and proven themselves at the highest level again. I'd love Wilshere to do nothing more, but it looks tough. But hey, Jack, get yourself to training. Arteta, watch him closely. If there's something there, if Wilshere can anywhere near reproduce some of the form we've seen over his best years at Arsenal, then he could absolutely be an asset if he stays injury free. Form was temporary, class was permanent. I keep saying that with Jack, but who knows, we'll see what happens. Arteta was asked about his first 2 months of the season, how they've been for him. And he basically touched on certain things not being in his control, but he said that basically it's about how him and the club take that and how they respond to it. But then he said what you want is not always what happens. Things happen for a reason, and maybe what is happening had to happen, and maybe it's going to be really good for the club and really good for myself and everybody experiencing that situation. We have to believe that. Now, dissect that how you want, guys. I mean, it sounds a little bit like he's saying, what's meant to be is meant to be. What happens is life is just what happens, and you kind of got to roll with it. Sometimes I take that. Sometimes I use that school of thought when I want to make myself feel a bit better in life. But ultimately, I think you also, things happen, and there's nothing you can do about it sometimes. But you also got to make your own luck. And I don't think Arteta's always helped himself in this job, despite other circumstances clearly playing a part. But he talks about that it could be really good for the club and it could be really good for himself and everybody in this situation. I don't know, maybe at times when he's speaking it sounds to me like he's saying he's had a bit of an epiphany, like he's maybe learned something, or he's doing things in a different way and he's excited about it. I don't know. I mean, here's what he said after whether the last couple of months have been character building. He gave a very fascinating answer. Now, it's quite a long one, but stick with me here because I think it's interesting how he decided to answer this one. He said, when I was a player, I made a decision in my career because I had personal issues with my parents. I decided to go to my former club, Real Sociedad, and that was tough because I had other opportunities, but I did it to be at home next to them because I thought that it was important. I suffered. I didn't play. I was on the bench, and I always said that was the key moment in my career to have more success after. I don't know how you measure success, but to enjoy it more, to go to bigger clubs and to do that was the right moment. Everybody that made those decisions and the experiences that I had there, it was the right thing that I needed in that I needed in that moment. At the moment, I couldn't see it. I was annoyed, upset, angry. I was really bad with myself and everybody. But today, looking back at it and reflecting on it, it was the perfect moment in the right time. I wouldn't say that that's a cryptic answer, but he's kind of, I think, using something that's happened in his past to explain what the circumstances of the last few months have taught him. And I think what he's basically saying when he says this quote, I was annoyed, upset, angry, I was really bad with myself and everybody, but today looking back, it was the perfect moment. I kind of think whether he's talking about things that didn't go right and things that he was really frustrated and angry about, ultimately yielding a good thing at the end, and maybe just saying that he's trying to just say, listen, there's always going to be bumps on the road, but there can be light at the end of the tunnel. And actually, that's what he said. He was asked on whether he's seeing the light now. He says, I can really see the light. I'm telling you, I'm very positive most of the time. I've seen the light and I can see the bright lights. There can be bumps in the road within that light, but I can see a lot of light. He used the word light a lot. Listen, I hope there's light at the end of the tunnel. I got to a point with Mikel where I lost faith and belief. I think a lot of fans did. But everything he's saying is alluding to me that he's had a change of mindset, change of perspective, or he's changed his ways a little bit. I don't know. It might be too little too late. If he doesn't win at Burnley, doesn't get a good performance out of his team, that could be it. But he's sort of trying to suggest that maybe he's feeling a different way. I don't know. Maybe something's clear. He talked about the project going bang. Maybe he feels it's gone bang, and now we're going to see the start. I don't know. But listen, he talks about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope he's absolutely right. We'll see. And let's round off this kind of press conference reaction, guys. He's been asked how hard it's been watching European matches without Arsenal being involved. He said it's hurt a lot, and whether the motivation is to make sure Arsenal are back in Europe next year, he said 100%. So there's a target, guys. I knew he wouldn't give us one, but he's kind of given us one here about, the motivation to get Arsenal back in Europe is 100% the goal. So let's see, what will that look like? I mean, I think with the strength of the top four this year, finishing 5th or 6th would be an okay/good season for Arsenal. If he was to somehow end up in the top four, that'd be an amazing season. Where Arsenal are right now, you can say we've got no divine right to be in the in the top 6, big 6, whatever. But we've got to at least get European football via the league table this season. We've got to do something in the league to suggest that we're back up there with those big 6 again. I kind of feel the big 4 are their own thing right now, and it pains me to say that, but we've got to show that we can do something to get back up there and commit and compete, and then next summer we can build on it. The final question was Lacazette. Is Lacazette still in his plans, and will he be leaving next summer? He said Lacazette's fully involved. He said you give the reasons why he hasn't played more minutes and he will be back to the form that he can achieve. I'm sure that he will be instrumental in our success. I hope to see Lacazette getting some more minutes. I know the argument that he's going off on a free transfer at the end of the season. I understand that. It's not been confirmed, by the way, but it looks that way. But I still think there's a good player in Lacazette, and I don't think Aubameyang's doing anything that warrants necessarily playing over Lacazette, but nor vice versa. So whoever starts up front, I'm kind of indifferent about. you know, we've got Lacazette for one more year. We could be petty and just say, you're not signing the contract, you're on your way, so, you know, you can rot in the reserves. Or we can just try and get everything we can out of him while we have him here. And I would be doing the latter personally. On team news, we're going to touch on this more in the warm-up, which will be coming up with me, Turkish and Cecil. But he basically said that everyone trained well. We know Jack is suspended, and it looks like El Neni is still out. So we'll see what happens there. All right, guys, that has been straight out of Colney. We've gone through Mikel Arteta's press conference ahead of the Burnley game. Let us know what you thought of some of those comments, and if you want to watch the full thing, go check out Haters TV, or I think maybe it's on Arsenal's website, whatever it is. Go check out the full press conference if you want to see just sort of some more things he was saying, but that's pretty much the main gist and the main points. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out all the content we've got coming out ahead of Burnley, and don't forget to join us for Matchday Live from 9:30 in the morning all the way through to the evening when the fan cams are coming out, and hopefully we'll be celebrating a win. I'll see you next week for another Straight Out of Colney. Come on, Arteta, light at the end of the tunnel, he says. We can see the light. We saw a little bit of Norwich. Let's hope it continues at Burnley. See you next time.